When did you first grow curious about the paranormal? Dare you dig deeper? You are listening to House of Asher.
Hey everybody, it's Steve Asher, and yes, you are listening to House of Asher. I believe this is episode 114, 115 maybe. I don't know. I'll have it listed down in the descriptions once I post this up. And speaking of the different places that you can find the show, you can go to Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, all those different ones like that. Obviously, some of you are listening to this on my YouTube page, House of Asher. And if you are global, odds are you're listening to it on Paranormal UK Radio. Bless those guys for wanting to carry my quirky little weird show. It touches about everything, and I'm kind of proud of that, that they wanted to carry me and give me that opportunity to really get out in a lot of areas that perhaps I would not have been able to broach as easily without their influence. So, Paranormal UK Radio. Cheers. I also should mention, please check out steveeasher.com. That's all lowercase and together. That's my little webpage, and you can find out about the Hauntings of series and other books I've written or in the middle of writing. Also, the show you're listening to, House of Asher, and the little video thing that I'm doing on YouTube currently, which is called History from the Dark Side. And anyway, shameless plug. Sorry, guys, but I got to get it out because otherwise I forget it. What I'm doing right now is more or less a talk, just a back and forth to you, or more or less a talk to you guys, and answering some different little questions that folks have had. What I've been doing, as some of you guys know, I work with special needs adults. That's my mainstay. And of course, I write and I draw and I do the show and all this other little stuff because I love to do it. Not that I don't love working with special needs adults, but obviously that is a job, and it takes a lot of patience and everything like that. So anyway, so this is sort of like me letting my hair down if I had any. Anyway, the way the show started, and like I said, it's like 114, 115 episodes now. It started out with a simple question. What was the earliest memory of something that scared you, that made you truly afraid? How did it affect you? Did it cripple you? Did it strengthen you in some way? Did it maybe make you look at life in a different way? Was there a life lesson in that fear? And it started out as a real simple kind of an experiment, really. It was, I had no plans on having the show go global. I had no plans on anything. There was no plan. It was anarchy in the purest form, and it was just an exercise, an intellectual exercise, and maybe a spiritual exercise for some people, and a good cathartic purge for people to kind of get the snakes out of their head, as my dad would say. And it sort of morphed. It changed. It grew from as some of you guys know, I grew up, playing in punk bands and stuff. And you take any group, no matter how three-chord they are, they crank it out and they jam and they sweat it out and they're going to get tighter, and the music's going to get more advanced. And it's a good thing. It's a bad thing too, because it grows, and sometimes it moves away from that original thought. And if you're kind of a hardliner with it, or if you had a big definite view of what you wanted to do, like say you're writing a book and you've had so many different influences and different things coming at you, that you slowly become or start changing that book for the masses, then it sort of stops being your book. So, but that's not really what happened with House of Asher. It's, again, a lot of you guys know music's a big influence for me, and always has been, always will be. From whatever. I was listening to, let me see, like some Black Sabbath this morning, some They Might Be Giants, some Partisans from the UK, just all kinds of different stuff, and I'm like that in the literary field. I'm checking out a book called 16 32 right now, and it's pretty cool, especially if you're into kind of historically accurate or historically placed sci-fi. You'll dig it. So anyway, and that's in between trying to write my own books and this and that. So, but there's something about letting your head open up, and there's something about giving yourself room to kind of explore that, to open yourself up where you're not in the driver's seat. Not that we really ever are, if you think about it, but it's a thing of going, I'm just going to groove. I'm just going to groove with it. Musicians, you'll hear this a lot. They'll get into a pocket of a song and they'll just riff it out. They'll get into a jam. They'll get into the whatever. You let the music do its thing through you. It sounds a little hocus pocus for some people, but it's similar to, say, if you love sports, you're a runner, or maybe a weightlifter, or whatever, a golfer. You have to get zen at a certain point, and it's going to happen if you like it or not. If you're open to the experience, and I think that's true in anything that we do in life. I think anything you touch, anything you experience, we are hardwired by nature. I think to explore and to be curious and to ride that wave, I think in a way that I do believe that there is sort of a universal consciousness. I think that we are interconnected. I'm not saying we're a hive mind, but I think that we, by the nature of the creature that we are, tend to, when we catch that wave and like a bird floating on the air, we ride it. And that's beautiful. And to me, that's one of the most freest moments that I can think of. And I often feel that when I'm doing this show, House of Asher. And a lot of the folks that we've had on, anybody from music, anybody from the literary world, anybody from movies, anybody from people in entertainment in regards of like people who keep up with movies and keep up with, like, especially B movies, horror hosts and stuff. I am a closet horror host, guys, and that's just one of the things I love, and it comes out in the shows because I think if you've listened to it, you can hear it. I'm going to be excited about the guest I've got because I don't want them on my show if I'm not. And please don't take that as being elitist, but it just means there's enough shows. There's a lot of shows out there that do a lot of hardline politics. And, I'm more of a centralist because I know, look, you're going to have to live with both sides, left or right, or whatever, Green Party, whatever your thing is. I'm not real cozy with the whole Nazi vibe. That's not real cool. But for the most part, everybody hopefully has something positive from their side to contribute. And that's just the nature of it. You have to give and take. It's the nature of it. And but I don't do a lot of politics. If I do, it's a specific reason. Like if I decided to do a show on the Epstein, and I'm doing air quotes, suicide, that's because I found somebody who I think has a compelling view that can bring some evidence that's not going to be like every other talking head, every other political show, be it like Rush or whoever. I don't want to do that. I've done radio, and for me that gets real boring really fast because that's fine. Let's say I did one show a month that touched on political stuff. And if you guys are interested in that, say something in the comments once you've listened to this, and give me some specific points, very specific. I can talk in a minute. Specific areas and moments and things. I don't want to get bogged down in like a mire of something, an event, a time, a changing point, or whatever, and I'll do it. But other than that, it's not really my thing. Did enough of that as a punk. But what I'm more interested now in is something that is universal, something that we all connect on, something that we can all groove with, that we can all ride that wave and have that flow of conversation and have that sharing of information and having the excitement of discourse and excitement of learning and excitement of maybe sometimes having your paradigms shifted a little bit. Because I know I've had people on that I kind of thought, okay, I kind of know where this is going to go. But sometimes it changes up. And I've been lucky enough to have guests that I would talk to, and after the interview, because I always do a follow-up after the interview and go, hey, does everything sound good to you guys, and blah, 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 did we miss anything? You know, and it's great when you have somebody that goes, I've never had anybody maybe challenge me that way. Not in a bad way, but just like, you kept me on my toes, and that's a huge, I'm kind of speechless in even saying it, because it's one of those deals of going, when you have a really good guest, they make you ask good questions. And hopefully vice versa. You know, it brings something else out, and maybe it makes your mind go down a certain path to where you go, oh, yeah, let's do that. And you always kind of got to be a few steps ahead. It's just like putting like a sausage making machine. You've constantly got to have questions and things fed into there, so you keep the sausage production going, as it were. I know it's a very utilitarian kind of way of explaining it, but that's, you know, I'm a blue collar guy. My family's all blue collar guys. Some of my family is so poor they didn't even have shirts to have collars, so there's that. But so, you know, I do try to take it that way, and I always try to be respectful of people, and I've been very lucky in that. So I do want to say thanks on that. Upcoming stuff. I will tell you that planning on having a pretty interesting show. Not just talking about giants, but talking about red-haired giants in America, and certain things that tie in with an alternate theory of what was going on in America, you know, in the early ages of prehistoric America. I do plan on having on, I'll just throw a few names out. Some of you guys knew I was going to have John Hogue on recently. I still do plan on having him there. Yes, I will be asking him questions. Marlene, who had left a question in the chat room, about asking him about the Epstein situation. And I will tell you, I'm a little freaked out about that whole deal, because it seems like everybody connected to that whole sort of scene gets suicided, and I got way too much to do, and I got too many kids to see raised up and want to be involved in that. I don't want to get taken out. So I'm treading lightly, and I'm not saying that jokingly. I'm very much concerned about that. Also, I will be looking at the possibility of doing certain, how do I say this? Certain magical related experiments on air. Some of you guys know, and I'm, you know, always upfront about my influences. And one of the big ones, and especially talk radio, was Mr. Art Bell. And you can love him, you can hate him, you can whatever. And it's funny how many people I've seen kind of, now that he's gone, will kind of go, well, that was BS, or nah, and he, prima donna, whatever. Maybe so. But the guy definitely influenced me on stuff. And one of the things I remembered, he did like the big collective consciousness experiment. I'm going to do something not quite like that. Something that's a little bit more in a magical realm. Maybe more, certainly esoteric, but a little bit more into the world of witchcraft and magic. And some of you may not like it, and that's cool. But I dig it, so I'm going to try it. So that's what we're doing, guys. Hang on and just roll with me. You know, I'm always respectful, and I'm not going to take anybody into a situation that, you know, I don't feel comfortable myself going into. But that's a few of the things that's going to happen. Also, I know you guys know a lot about this Momo situation, and it's a sort of a weird situation. You know, I know that there's kids that's been kind of terrorized and threatened, and there was, you know, suicides have come out of this, but there has been like a new film that recently had come out, and I'm actually in the processes of reviewing it now, and plan on having the guys on soon to discuss that. So I'm really excited. What's been going on top of that, other than me knocking things around here in my room, sorry, is that I've been slamming away on my books. I've got 2 basically completed for next year. I have a 3rd and a 4th ready for the year after that, and I'm trying to work bits as I can on some for the upcoming years into the next 3rd and 4th year. And we'll see where that goes. Also, obviously, as I've mentioned, the History from the Dark Side, I'm working on that, and I am not a video editor, straight up. I used to do some for splicing live stuff from my shows and just crazy, stock footage and, planes bombing cities and just crazy stuff. Punk rock, you're going to do stuff like that. So, so this is a crash course in editing for me. So it takes a minute. So, and of course, on top of that, with my job that I mentioned, got a house full of kids, got a grandbaby. So, I'm just an average guy. So it takes me a while to do stuff like that. But I did promise you guys that I was going to kind of touch base with you guys. And if you guys were expecting a guest this week, I apologize. This will not be a very long segment like I told you, but it will be, enough that you kind of get a little bit of a feel for where I'm going with some of my stuff. And as always, I want you guys to comment. That's one thing that, I live on what you guys have to say about it. I live on suggestions, especially our criticisms, especially if they're actually constructive and not just something stupid and mean, but something that's actually relevant. I appreciate it, and I need that. You can't live in a vacuum with this and put out a good product or an interesting talk show, which I know a lot of shows are like, well, I'm a paranormal show. I am a this and this and that. I'm a paranormal investigator. I'm this and that, which that's wonderful. So am I. But unless you have a really interesting guest, which I've had some, like the RVA team that it was on recently, they were great. They were funny and they were down to earth and there was no BS about them. But I tire of that. It's just like if you get somebody like a famous boxer or something like that, and all you want to do is talk about is how many hits he does, or a baseball player and how many home runs he's got, he's going to bore really quickly with it because that's all he hears. So I don't want to do that. So I'm going to talk about everything I want to. We may do a show about fairy folk. We may do a thing about parallel universes and the veil between the two, the X amount of worlds coming together. A lot of people believe you can call it end times, you can call it a change of vibration, you can call it whatever. You could even call it whatever, a hellmouth, anything you want to call it. But a lot of people believe we are headed for a change, and I'm not a doom and gloom guy. I kind of was. I kind of was that for a lot of years. But I try to look more to the positive stuff. But I'm a realist. So who's to say that there's not dark times coming? I prefer to look at the light. I think there are certain things that definitely have gotten better as we went along. And I do think that we're making strides in certain areas. And as long as we can kind of hold those running stuff to more or less, how do I say this? I'm sorry, I'm having a moment. More or less to be forthright and answer for choices made, and actually listen to the people who voted them in and whatnot. I think things can be really great. I hear a lot of stuff about the Space Force thing. I always wanted to go to space. I was actually listening to a song called Major Tom Coming Home. I'm blanking on the guy's name. Schilling is his last name. And I always wanted to see space. I always wanted to walk on the moon and Mars. I always wanted to see what kind of settlements they could set up on Europa and beyond. So going into space is if we're going to advance as a race, be it if you want to talk in kind of Star Trek terms, you know, type 1 civilization, type 2, type 3, whatever, we have to kind of, get into more than just oil. We have to get into different sort of powers, natural powers, geothermal, all that stuff. And I'm not saying scrap everything else, but you can't put, you can't be a one-trick pony, because we know there's a lot of pollution that does go on. So, we have to start acting like friggin' adults a little bit and go, well, in 100 years when I'm gone and my grandkids are trying to slam through this, are they going to be able to have healthy kids? Or are they going to be breathing through respirators because the air is so polluted? That's as much as I'll get into that. But that's just how I feel about it. And I think there's a lot of... something happened to me once, especially when I became a granddad. It slowed me down a little bit. And once, I'll be 50 this November. And so things were like, well, man, you're at a point. You're kind of at a watershed. And who do you want to be? What sort of legacy do you want to leave behind? So that's what kind of where I'm at. I'm hoping for the best. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. I'm more like anymore. Prepare and hope for the best, but always know that the worst can happen, and have some idea of what you're going to do about it if it does. But beyond that, we can only do what we can do. And that's the thing too about the show, is that that I think has shown in what I do here. And even on shows like Solaris Blue Raven, Witching Hour, and Coast to Coast, when like Richard Serrett's on there, and God bless those guys and ladies for having me as guest on their show. I don't mind plugging other people's shows, especially if they're good to me and good people. Sky Watchers, all those guys. Just there's I could list 20 of them, but you don't want to hear that. But that's what it's about, community. And too many people want to be king, and everybody wants to get the biggest piece of the pie and smack heads and snap fingers and give orders. And that's humanity's kiss of death. We're not made to be like that. Somewhere along the way, somebody was told that and convinced that, look, man, this is how you get it done. This is how we get down. This is who we are. And for me, it's just really not. I was never a super aggro type guy. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I played football like most other kids, especially in this area. It's kind of a John Wayne kind of vibe. You got to be kind of a tough guy, or at least, if you get hit hard, you're gonna cry in front of somebody. If you got to, you go around the corner and you do it. That was just the nature of growing up here. But the older I get, the more I don't give a damn. It's all about being open and showing people that it's okay. It's okay to have emotions. It's okay to say that you don't know what the hell you're doing. In fact, I prefer that. To the point of, obviously, I don't want the guy flying the plane to sit and tell me, yeah, I ain't got no clue, buddy. But when it comes to stuff, more or less, somebody says, look, I know enough to know I don't know everything, or I know just enough to get myself in trouble. That shows a kind of a humility and just an honesty. And then it kind of takes the vibe of, well, let us all have our pretenses, let us all wear a mask, let us all, flex or pose or whatever you want to call it. And there comes a time when, if you can get past that, you're going to be a lot better. And that's part of us, evolving as people, and as whatever you want to call it, spirit beings, or whatever. If you believe in that, if you're, and if you're not, this is all we've got, then why not try to be the best version of yourself that you can? self-actualize what you want to be, self-actualize the world you want around you. And there's a time I would have thought that was extremely kind of, I don't know, new agey a little bit, which there's nothing wrong with, but there's a time I would have laughed that off. Just because it scared me. That stuff opening up wide open like that? Come on. But that's one of those deals where you will, by nature of living and opening yourself up, you bring in more positive people, which allows yourself to be more comfortable in being opening up, and you open it up more, and that becomes you, no longer a practice, an exercise in thought. It becomes how you operate. That is you, and at the root of it, that is all of us. But I don't know. That's just kind of the way I feel about it. I should say as well, some of you guys may or may not know about stuff like Bubba Fest. That's something that happened in Knoxville not long ago. I talked to the guys from there. They seem really super laid back. I plan on next year trying to be at that convention. I also hope to be at the Dark History Con up in Illinois. I'm not sure if it's going to be in Alton or Urbana, Illinois. It's up around Chicago. Let's just say that for those that's in that area. I probably should say as well, if there is an event that is within 400 miles of Princeton, Kentucky, you won't know where it's at. I'm about an hour north of Nashville. If you want me at your event, be it as a vendor, keynote speaker, if you need me for whatever, for a show, for a movie about whatever, I'm your guy, and I'm always happy to do that. I'm just touching on some of these things because I usually don't say this a lot on the radio, because it's about the guest, and it's about that back and forth with the guest. So I'm just taking the time now to talk from me to you and letting you know where I'm at and what I'm able to do and what I'm willing to do. Because as always, I am still trying to get some of my stories and my books into something like Amazon or Netflix or some of these different video vehicles. And with any hope, I've been talking to some people, and we'll see what happens. But that is sort of where I'm at right now. But if you guys decide that you want to have, I don't know, say an artist or a writer that you find extremely compelling, or just an individual with a really, really unique story, a strange story. I've had a lot of people, as you've heard on the show, some people are local, some people are as far off as like Alaska, but they've had strange experiences. They've had unusual lives. And I think that's what happens. The more you open yourself up to people with different lives, but are basically all the same, but they've had unusual experiences. That's the thing I tell folks, is that I'm a really just an average guy. I'm a fan of the paranormal. I'm the fan of music and art and unusual things and folklore and all these legends that we've heard, in school or from our grandparents, sitting at their knee while they're making breakfast or whatever, or while you're out with your uncles or your dad cutting wood or going to the local market for dinner, hearing the stories that your aunt and your mom were talking about. That's what I want to see carried off into the stories that we do. And I want to hear from you guys about that. Because I think in the end, all we have is each other. And that's all right. Well, guys, I'm going to go and wind it down. I've loved being able to talk to you guys, and please, if you like this, click like on the video. Please subscribe, especially on YouTube. Share it with a friend, and help me make this thing go viral. As always, the more I get out, it's like a ripple. more we throw, and the more lives we touch, the better off we are. But as always, enjoy the daylight. Go out there, have some fun, make some memories. But as the sun begins to settle behind the tall pines and the shadows grow long, make sure to check beneath your bed, in your closet, out the back hallway. You never know. There may be something frightening down there, but there's learning and knowledge in fear sometimes. So don't be afraid to learn and open yourself up for new experiences. But above all, please remember, I love you guys, and until next time, stay scared, everybody.